The B-1 bridge underwent a total structural divorce from the Earth at exactly 3:14 a.m. The primary pylon of the Middle East's tallest bridge ceased to exist as a solid object. A 2,000-pound GBU-31 JDAM impacted the concrete at 650 miles per hour. The hardened steel nose of the bomb acted as a cold-forged punch, driving 3 feet into the reinforced heart of the pylon before the FMU-143 delayed action fuse triggered. The resulting chemical reaction converted 900 pounds of high explosive into a supersonic pressure wave. This was the first kinetic beat of a coordinated secret U.S.-Israeli strike package designed to paralyze the Iranian heartland before a single radar dish could even rotate toward the threat. The mission began at 2 a.m. The strike package pushed across the Iranian border at 15,000 feet, flying a route designed to exploit the radar shadows of the Zagros Mountains. Leading the vanguard were 4 Israeli F-35I Adir stealth fighters. These aircraft function as the project managers of the kill chain. Their sensor suites fused into a single network that maps the Iranian Revolutionary Guard Corps air defense grid in real time. The F-35I Adir has a radar cross-section the size of a golf ball moving at 600 knots. Its computers are constantly assigning tasks identifying the exact operating frequencies of the Iranian S-300 and S-400 radar dishes and preparing to remove the bottleneck of the enemy's early warning system. Trailing the stealth vanguard were 4 U.S. Air Force F-15E Strike Eagles, heavy with ordnance and moving at Mach 1.2, roughly 920 miles per hour. At this speed, the friction of the air against the airframe creates immense thermal stress, but the crews were running dark and silent. The Iranian military was not dormant. Their passive infrared search and track systems were scanning the horizon for thermal wakes. This is the difference between an amateur defense and a professional kill chain. The IRGC didn't need to emit radar pulses to know something was coming. They were waiting for the betrayed expectation, the moment the strike package committed to the target. The target was the B-1 bridge, the tallest bridge in the Middle East and the vital logistics umbilical cord between Tehran and the western city of Karaj. Severing it would decapitate the regime's ability to move heavy armor and reinforcements. At 3:14 a.m., the first AGM-158 JASM was released from an F-15E Strike Eagle at a range of 50 miles. The missile is a ghost shaped to deflect radar and coated in radar-absorbent material. It skimmed the terrain at 550 miles per hour, using its infrared seeker to match the bridge's unique heat signature against a preloaded 3D map. The missile impacted the northern support pylon with a kinetic release that pulverized reinforced concrete into a fine gray dust. The bridge underwent a total structural divorce from the Earth. The steel rebar designed to hold 2,000 tons of tension snapped like dry twigs. The bridge's roadway, a 2,000-foot concrete span, became a massive whip undulating under the force of gravity before the expansion joints sheared off. This first strike resulted in 2 civilian casualties as cars were tossed like toys into the gorge. The physics of the collapse were violent. The roadway accelerated into the valley floor at 32 feet per second squared, hitting the bottom with a force that registered as a seismic event on regional sensors. The artery was dead. Tehran's kinetic response was not limited to its own borders. Within minutes of the B-1 bridge collapse, the IRGC initiated a coordinated regional escalation. According to reports from the Associated Press, Tehran launched a simultaneous missile barrage targeting facilities in neighboring Gulf countries and directly into Israel. This was a strategic move to roil global energy markets and disrupt the world's supply of oil and natural gas. In Tel Aviv, the sky was shattered by a cluster bomb attack reported by Fox News, with submunitions blanketing the city in a high-density grid of fire. The IRGC demonstrated that the strike on the bridge would not be an isolated incident, but the trigger for a regional firestorm that pushed global oil prices to a breaking point. The machinery we build is incredible, but it's only as good as the people who operate it under fire. We are talking about pilots and WSOs who spent 94 seconds in a literal hellscape balancing the mission against their own survival. Many of you watching have been in those cockpits. You've felt the 9G pull. You've heard the RWR scream. If you have a message for the families of the airmen still missing in the Zagros Mountains, or if you want to share what it's like to fly a warthog into a Manpad's gauntlet, the comment section is yours. We stand with our operators. Simultaneous to the chaos in Tel Aviv, the second phase of our operation hit central Iran. This was the logic of the dilemma. We hit 2 high-value targets at once, forcing the Iranian command to choose where to send their limited quick reaction forces. The targets in Isfahan were the oil and natural gas processing facilities. These are the regime's financial heart. The weapon of choice was the GBU-39 small-diameter bomb. The F-35I Adir released 16 of these munitions in a single shotgun volley. The SDBs glided through the cold desert air, their diamondback wings extended. They hit the refinery storage tanks in a perfectly synchronized sequence.
The kinetic impact of the hardened noses pierced the steel tanks, followed by a delayed detonation that ignited hundreds of thousands of gallons of high-octane fuel. The result was a thermal event so intense it melted the asphalt on nearby highways. The sky over Isfahan turned orange as fireballs rose 1,000 feet into the night sky, visible to meteorological satellites orbiting 22,000 miles above the Earth. As our F-15E Strike Eagle turned for the exit at Mach 1.4, nearly 1,070 miles per hour, the IRGC's newly developed Advanced Aerospace Defense System bit back. This was the variable no one planned for. Hidden in the Zagros mountain range, an Iranian air defense unit had been operating in passive mode, waiting for an optical or thermal lock. They waited for us to commit to our exit vector. The proximity fuse triggered 10 feet from the tail fin. The kinetic impact of the shrapnel shredded the hydraulic lines and the left engine's fuel manifold. A $100 million aircraft was converted into an unguided ball of fire in a heartbeat. The IRGC proved they could find a golf ball moving at 600 knots. The pilot managed to pull the handles, but the weapons systems officer went missing in the clouds of smoke over the Khuzestan province. The IRGC's response inside central Iranian airspace proved that American intelligence had suffered a massive failure. While the U.S. president claimed the complete destruction of Iranian air defense systems, Iranian state TV mocked these false claims as the strike package exited the target zone. The IRGC activated a newly developed advanced aerospace defense system that had remained completely silent during the initial ingress. This system utilized a high-frequency tracking logic that bypassed traditional stealth filtering. It was a tactical trap designed to lure the F-15E Strike Eagle into a high-density kill zone in central Iran. The system achieved a hard kinetic lock, proving the Iranian air defense grid was far from dismantled. As our F-15E Strike Eagle turned for the exit, the IRGC activated their newly developed Advanced Aerospace Defense System. This was the variable no one planned for. Hidden in the Zagros Mountains, the Iranian battery had been operating in passive mode, waiting for a thermal lock. The F-15E Strike Eagle pilot's radar warning receiver went immediately to a continuous wave scream. Surface-to-air missiles was already in the air. The pilot initiated a 9G brake turn maneuver that puts 9 times the force of gravity on the human body, turning the blood in his veins into lead. He dumped bundles of chaff and magnesium flares, but the Iranian missile was a dual seeker variant. It ignored the decoys and tracked the thermal wake of the 2 massive Pratt & Whitney engines. The missile's proximity fuse triggered just behind the left tail fin. The kinetic impact of the shrapnel shredded the hydraulic lines. The $100 million aircraft became a ball of fire. The pilot pulled the ejection handles, and the Ace's 2 seats rocketed the crew out at 400 miles per hour. The aircraft impacted the Khuzestan mountainside, creating a crater 30 feet deep. The pilot survived. The weapons systems officer went missing. Near the Strait of Hormuz, the situation turned from a strike to a survival struggle. An A-10 Warthog assigned to the maritime flank was providing a diversion when it was caught in a high-density ground fire environment. The A-10 Warthog is legendary for its 1,200-pound titanium bathtub that protects the pilot. The pilot was flying low at 200 feet, at 350 miles per hour, engaging Iranian coastal patrol boats with his 30mm GAU-8 Avenger cannon. The gun is a mechanical roar that can be heard for miles, the 30mm rounds punching through steel holes like a fist through drywall. But the Iranian coast was a fortified nest of Manpath's shoulder-fired missiles. The IRGC ground teams were professional, waiting for the Warthog to commit to a strafing run before firing. Small arms fired thousands of 7.62 and 12.7mm rounds patterned against the armor. Then, a heat-seeking missile impacted the right engine. The fire was uncontrolled, feeding on the hydraulic fluid. The pilot was forced to crash the aircraft in the shallow waters near the coast. Within minutes, Iranian state TV was broadcasting images of the wreckage, calling the missing American airmen a precious prize and placing a bounty on their heads. The most dangerous kinetic environment of the night occurred during the search and rescue operation, as 2 HH-60 Pavehawk helicopters pushed into the Zagros Mountains to recover the downed Chrono. They were met by heavy enemy fire. The Iranian ground units utilized high-density small arms and heavy machine guns to saturate the rescue corridor. The kinetic impact was devastating. Both helicopters were struck. The metal skin was shredded by 12.7mm rounds, and critical internal systems were compromised. One HH-60 Pavehawk suffered a severed hydraulic line in the tail rotor driveshaft, causing a violent vibration that nearly shook the airframe apart. The door gunners returned fire with .50 caliber machine guns, the tracers creating long glowing fingers of light in the dark. The kinetic impact of the .50 caliber rounds shredded the Iranian technical trucks on the valley floor. Crew members were injured as rounds penetrated the thin airframes. The IRGC turned the crash site into a kill zone, proving their tactical ingenuity by using the downed F-15E Strike Eagle as bait to damage our recovery fleet. The U.S. military never leaves a man behind. Within 20 minutes, a combat search and rescue task force was launched. 2 HH-60 Pavehawk helicopters pushed into the Zagros Mountains. They were flying nap of the earth, less than 50 feet above the jagged rocks at 160 miles per hour. The pilots used night vision goggles, turning the pitch-black mountains into a grainy green world of shadows. As they approached the F-15E crash site, the IRGC was waiting. Ground forces opened fire with 12.7mm heavy machine guns. The HH-60 Pavehawk door gunners returned fire, their .50 caliber machine guns creating long glowing fingers of light in the dark. The kinetic impact of the .50 caliber rounds shredded the Iranian technical trucks on the valley floor. One helicopter was hit in the rotor mast. The vibration was violent, but the pilot held it steady. They located the F-15E pilot and extracted him under a hail of gunfire, but the WSO's beacon remained silent. The second helicopter was forced to break off as 2 Iranian F-4 Phantom interceptors were vectored into the area. The F-35I Adir proved its worth as the project manager of the kill chain. While the helicopters were evading ground fire, the stealth fighters loitering at 30,000 feet identified the Iranian interceptors. The Iranian pilots had no idea they were being hunted. They were looking for the helicopters, unaware that a stealth predator was 40 miles away. The F-35I Adir released 2 AIM-120 AMRAAM. The AIM-120 AMRAAM accelerated to Mach 4, over 3,000 miles per hour. They used their own internal radar to track the targets in the final seconds. The impact was total. The first Iranian interceptor was deleted from the sky in a flash of white light. The second pilot ejected before the missile even hit, terrified by the invisible death that had just claimed his wingman. The CASR helicopters escaped, but the WSO remained behind enemy lines. The bridge is gone, but the mission isn't over. The reality of this engagement is a reminder that the US is the main character in this story, but we are not an invincible one. Every strike, every severed supply line, and every